The injury bug has officially struck fantasy football, so let's take a look at our Week 3 running back and wide receiver rankings. Starting off with the wide receivers, and we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, and Justin Jefferson all in Tier 1. Now, CeeDee Lamb was my wide receiver 1 for most weeks. However, Amon-Ra has a fantastic matchup going up against the Cardinals. I looked at fantasy points coverage data, and Amon-Ra has a fantastic matchup. He fares very well against the coverages they run and those schemes, so I'm expecting a big week out of him. CeeDee Lamb is obviously just amazing, and Jefferson is great, but some question about him. He was a little banged up. Even though Amon-Ra was, I feel more secure about his injury and him playing through it than Jefferson because he left the game early. So, dropping down to Tier 2, we have Jamar Chase at 4, Nico Collins at 5, and Tyreek at 6. Now, with Jamar, he's great, but he's obviously struggled. I think going up against the Commanders, we saw Neighbors torch them last week. He's in a great bounce back spot. Nico Collins, it just looks amazing. Dominated the Bears on Monday Night Football. He looks like a mini A.J. Brown, and until he proves me wrong, I think he's going to dominate target share. He's a fantastic player, and he's paired with C.J. Stroud. Plus, they're playing the Dolphins, so it should be a solid matchup. I think they shouldn't really have too tough of a time getting points on the board. Then you have Tyreek Hill, no Tua. Again, that sucks, and his splits are not great, but it's still Tyreek Hill. He's still one of the best receivers in the league, and I'm still starting him as a top 6 guy in this tier because of his upside and ability on a week-to-week basis. Dropping down to Tier 3, we are going to have Rashee Rice at 7, Garrett Wilson at 8, Marvin Harrison Jr. at 9, Drake London at 10, and Mike Evans at 11. Now, Rashee Rice has jumped up drastically. He's basically a Amon-Ra St. Brown clone, but he also had the deep threat, and he's playing with the Chiefs. So, fantastic start to the year. I don't really think that we can rank him below these guys because he's proven to be consistent and dominant week in and week out. Garrett Wilson, he has a good matchup against the Patriots. Hopefully that as a team, the Jets should do well, but I guess it is a little bit tougher now that I'm kind of thinking about it with Christian Gonzalez on him. Overall, though, I think they should put up a decent number of points. Marvin Harrison Jr. playing against the Lions, high-scoring game, broke out last week. Again, I wasn't worried, but if you were, you can finally lay your worries to rest. Drake London, another fantastic matchup. I know the Chiefs' corners are tough, but it should be a high-scoring game. He fares very well in the coverage matchup on fantasy points as well. And Mike Evans had a down week, but just didn't have the touchdown. Now they're playing the Broncos. I think he should have a bounce-back week. Again, solid matchup for him, even though he is going up against Pat Surtain. But at 12, we're going to have Chris Godwin right back-to-back. 13, Devonta Smith. Olave at 14, and Devontae Adams at 15. So, with Godwin, he's the highest scoring points per game receiver in fantasy football right now. Dropped 20 points on a back-to-back basis, back-to-back weeks, and that new slot role, or putting him back in the slot role, has absolutely crushed for him. He's doing fantastic. The Bucs look great. Baker looks great. So he has to be a lone wide receiver 1. I think that just the other guys are more talented, and I think the floor for Godwin might be a little lower, but he's still fantastic, and honestly, I could see him moving up even into that Mike Evans tier. Devonta Smith, no A.J. Brown, was fantastic. 20 points last week. He's a great talent if A.J. Brown isn't there, and he's the number 1. I absolutely love him. Chris Olave at 14. The Saints look very good. Rashid Shaheed has just been stealing the show. If you expect that to continue, then I'm not so sure about that. We know what Rashid Shaheed is. He's going to have a few weeks that are fantastic because he's getting the touchdown, the deep threat, but overall, Olave is definitely the better player. Olave is a talent, and just the situation being pretty solid is a very encouraging sign, and why I still have him as a top 15 receiver. Devontae Adams, very old, but again, getting that target share of Brock Bowers is coming on. I think he's dropped down to low-end wide receiver 2, but he's a very high-floor player. You know what you're getting out of Adams on a week-to-week basis. Now, dropping down to Tier 5, we are going to have Brandon Ayuk at 16, DJ Moore at 17, Neighbors at 18, Waddle at 19, Zay Flowers at 20. I don't think anything is too questionable here. We'll talk about Ayuk. No Deebo Samuel, but he's also looked very bad. Otherwise, I'd have him higher than this. Overall, though, I think the lack of target competition and still playing with Brock Purdy is going to help him more than it's going to hurt him. And he should get back on track this week. Neighbors, fantastic player, but we knew he was going to crush last week against the Commanders. Dream matchup, horrible team. They made Daniel Jones look good. Now Neighbors plays against the Browns, and Jones might be in a little bit of trouble when he has to face up against Myles Garrett and that Browns defense. So I think Neighbors is still a player that has to be a mid to high end wide receiver 2 because he can score 30 points on a weekly basis, and he's a fantastic talent. But I just can't have him that much higher over the other guys with better matchups and are just, have a much, much higher floor than Neighbors right now, in my opinion. Waddle, I get it. The splits are really bad without Tua, but he's still a very talented player. As long as Skylar Thompson can get him the ball somewhat, he'll be fantastic. And also, going to that fantasy points matchup data that has Amon-Ra at 1, Waddle was 4 in expected fantasy points per route run, so fantastic news. I think that the great situation they're going up against the Seahawks should be a solid game. I think it's going to help propel Waddle, at least to be a wide receiver 2, even with no Tua. Zay Flowers, I think we kind of know what he is. Wide receiver 1 for the Ravens, and he's been solid, but doesn't have a crazy high floor or ceiling. Seems like a mid-end wide receiver 2 for me. But at 21 in tier 6, we're going to have JSN, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf, and Tank Dell. JSN could be even higher than this. I honestly was debating putting him over Zay Flowers. 18 targets last week. He was the wide receiver 2 on snaps in week 2 as well, I believe, or routes run. And he's finally surpassed Tyler Lockett. It's finally come. The day is here. We've all been waiting for this. He's an elite prospect, so expect the breakout to come. He was amazing last week, 22 points. Big things are coming for JSN. He's going to be a mid wide receiver 2 at least, or low end wide receiver 2 for most of the year. We have Michael Pittman, very bad situation. DK Metcalf, I think Metcalf, especially this week against the Dolphins, is going to gather a lot of attention from Jalen Ramsey on the outside, and they're going to use him to scheme JSN open in the middle of the field. So Metcalf is the better real-life player, but I think they're going to work in a way to where JSN should out-target him. This is for PPR leagues, and getting those extra receptions, getting that crazy target volume is going to help him actually outproduce JSN, outproduce DK. To round things off, though, Tank Dell is at 24, and he's going against the Minnesota Vikings cornerback 3. Their defense has not looked great. I think that it's a good matchup for him. He's honestly got open, just a little unlucky with the throws. It just hasn't looked good so far. But I truly believe Dell is more explosive and has more upside than Stephon Diggs. Why have him one spot ahead of him? But I think as the wide receiver 24, I'm just looking for upside, and I think Dell has more of that than anyone else below him or Stephon Diggs. But let's hop into the running backs. Before we do, though, if you guys want these full rankings, if you guys have any questions, check out the link below in the comments in the description. Completely free community. Shoot me a DM on Discord, and I will answer all my messages there because I get them there more than anywhere else. So, again, please check it out. Link is in the description. Link is in the comments. Completely free. Let's hop right back into the running back rankings. For our RB1 on the week, we are going to go with Saquon Barkley, Bijan Robinson at 2, and Breece Hall at 3, all in tier 1. Saquon going up against the Saints. Should be a high-scoring game. The defense is not that good. Bijan against the Chiefs, high-scoring game. He's looked fantastic. The Falcons love using him. Algier is basically a non-factor. Breece Hall against the Patriots. Again, Hall's looked amazing as well. I don't really think there's too much discussion to be had there. At 4, though, we're going to have Devon Achane. And 5, we're going to have Jahmyr Gibbs. Achane is at the point, I loved him coming into the year. And he's at the point to where, if he's healthy, he's a top 5 back every week. He has that receiving role. Mike McDaniel said that they want to get him the ball even more. Tua is gone, so it may result in more checkdowns there, relying more on the run game, and just overall, the dude has a ceiling that no one else can really match in fantasy football besides CMC, and he's hurt right now. So you have to put him this high. Jahmyr Gibbs is fantastic as well. Going up against the Cardinals should be a high-scoring game. Gives him a ton of opportunity, and he has that ceiling as a pass catcher. Now let's drop down to tier 3, where we're going to have Jonathan Taylor at 6, Kyron Williams at 7, Jordan Mason at 8, James Cook at 9, and Elvin Kamara at 10. So Jonathan Taylor, still fantastic. Kyron Williams, I have some questions about. The Rams' offense is just so depleted, their O-line so depleted, that you feel like they have to run everything through him, but at the same time, it might just be such a dumpster fire that they can't move the ball, they can't do anything, and that's a little concerning, especially because Kyron's been pretty inefficient to start the year. Jordan Mason, we know who he is by now. He is a very good player in a very good scheme. Again, he's filling in for CMC, and until then, he will be a top 10 back. Then at 9, we're going to have James Cook. I think I threw up the graphic for Ramondre Stevenson. Oh, I messed this up. James Cook is at 9, and Elvin Kamara is at 10. Now that we have that squared away, Kamara's just been fantastic. The Saints' offense looks amazing. James Cook had 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, I believe, last game. So both are very hot. It's just the consistency on a week-to-week basis. Cook is playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Kamara's playing against the Eagles. I like Kamara's matchup a little more, but he's also just a guy that only really he's looked great, but I just have concerns that if they, force him to run the ball against a good defense, that he is not going to be as efficient, and he's not really going to be able to do so. But dropping down to tier 4, we're going to have Derrick Henry at 11. We're going to have Travis Etienne at 12, and James Conner at 13. So Conner's look fantastic. I think that you have to start him as a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 until, he kind of phases out. The Cardinals offense looks amazing. Good game script and matchup. Etienne playing against the Bills, fantastic. Should be a shootout. Tank Bigsby's also injured, so that should help him limit those, get those extra carries that Bigsby may have gotten. That was a little annoying. And Derrick Henry against the Cowboys, if it can be a shootout, if the Ravens can get ahead, that has the upside for a 2-touchdown game for Henry, and he's just a great player in that great Ravens offense. Dropping down to tier 5, we have Joe Mixon, and people were flaming me, but I'll talk about him in a minute. 15, we're going to have Jacobs, and 16, we're going to have White. Small little tier, but people were flaming me for having Mixon this low. Again, I was surprised to see him have 30 touches in week 1. Went down to earth. I believe he had 8 or 9 points in week 2. I just don't expect him to get a crazy number of volume with how pass heavy they are. Now they're playing the Vikings. Again, it's a solid game script, which is why I have him, much higher than a guy that scored 9 points last week, and he is a high-end RB2. But I don't think he's going to have that 30-point upside, and that's not really going to happen most weeks. Jacobs a guy that I think is just fine. Jordan Love is not here, so you don't love playing him. He's not the best play, but he is what he is. He's a high-end RB2 at this point. And Rachaad White is also a player that I like a lot. Dealing with injury, again, assuming he plays, he'll be here. But he hasn't been very efficient. Bucky Irving's doing a little bit. The Broncos isn't a great game script. And if he does play, he'll probably be a little banged up. So don't love the matchup for him. But dropping down to our last tier, we are going to have Ramondre Stevenson at 17. Aaron Jones at 18. Pollard at 19. J.K. Dobbins at 20, Brian Robinson at 21. With Ramondre Stevenson, I really love the talent. I don't think it's that bad of a situation to where he can't produce. Good pass catcher. Gibson's a little banged up as well. Last time I looked at the injury report, Aaron Jones had a tough week, but he did fumble the ball very close to the end zone, and that could have drastically changed his day. I think he's still a fantastic player. When healthy, that's really my main concern with him, especially going up against the Texans. Should be a high-scoring game, and if they do need to throw the ball, he's a great pass catcher. Pollard, Spears is banged up, should give him even more opportunity. He's looked great to start the year, been a big Pollard fan. Trust the talent. It's fine if Spears has a little bit of the work. Pollard's the clear goal line guy and is getting a ton of work in the receiving game, in the running game. Overall, fantastic player. J.K. Dobbins, I love J.K. Dobbins. I was advocating to draft him all offseason, but I think 20 is a bit of a low spot because they're playing against the Steelers. Very good defense. It's going to be a low scoring game, so he has to be in an RB2. He has to be above top 24, in my opinion, just because of how good he is and how well he plays when he's not injured. But at the same time, he doesn't really have a super high ceiling. And I wouldn't be surprised in a game that's this ugly if he kind of just fell back down to earth for a week and, that was that. But this would be another mini tier, but we're going to put it in just for convenience reasons. Dave Montgomery and Charbonnet are in a little mini tier for me. Montgomery, high scoring game, should have touchdown upside like he does every week. Zach Charbonnet looked very good. We don't really know what to do with Kenneth Walker. Might have a small role if he doesn't. This is assuming Walker doesn't play, though. Charbonnet against the Vikings, I don't think is a fantastic matchup. And he looked great last week, but I don't really. I just can't project him higher than these other guys with fantastic ceilings and good matchups that we've seen. And we'll round things up with Jerome Ford. He's not that good. He's kind of a jag, but they're playing against the Giants, so it should be a pretty good game. Should allow them to run the ball, at least for Ford, hopefully score a touchdown. But let's go wrap things up. If you guys did enjoy the video, you guys have any other questions, again, join the Discord, link in the description, link in the comments, or drop me a comment as well. I'll try my best to get to it there. But if you guys want more content, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.